Everyone, my name is Chris Grosso with the Indie Spiritualist podcast on Ram Dass's Be Here Now network, and I am beyond thrilled, humbled, honored to have my dear friend Kelvin Young on this show. Kelvin, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Brother Chris, for this opportunity to be with you and kind of share and reminisce and just go back in time and memory lane. So it's an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you, man. I as soon as you hopped on, I told you my heart lights up, like my spirit lights up. I'm so excited to share you and your work and your experience with our listeners. So let me give our readers a quick bio about you, and then we're going to dive into this thing. So Kelvin Young, RSS, Recovery Support Specialist, for those not in the know, is an award-winning sound healer, support specialist, and published author and co-founder of the Soul Care Love LLC. Kelvin has presented around the country in diverse settings, including yoga studios, retreat centers, conferences, high schools, colleges, prisons, addiction treatment centers, psychiatric hospitals, and mental health agencies. And if I might add to that on a personal note, Alex Nelson Gray's Chapel of Sacred Mirrors.
Oh, yes.
He is passionate about holding space for people to heal and is known for his warm, loving, and down-to-earth way of connecting with people. And that honestly couldn't be more true. So, Kelvin, thanks again, man.
Thank you. Yes, honor to be here.
Yeah. So, I on a personal note, I met you, gosh, I don't remember how long ago, man. It's probably 10 years, maybe.
10 years ago, yeah.
And we met in Hartford through a very, dear place to both of our hearts.
Yes.
Toivo.
Yes.
A community center under the umbrella of Advocacy Unlimited.
Yes.
And that's where, I got to really connect with you and our dear, dear, beloved friend, Darren Drum. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up.
Absolutely.
We lost, sadly, but still lives on in our hearts and our spirits. And and I don't say that lightly. He really does. There he is. Wow. Yeah.
He's with us, literally. Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Think about him all the time. So, I've seen firsthand, the way you connect with people, the lives you touch, the way you just impact effortlessly, seamlessly. You just show up and people are just drawn to you. So thank you, first of all, for that, and being that presence in this world, my friend. But I wanted to start out with to give people a little bit about you. We were doing work at Toivo, especially you and I, based around our own experience with addiction and ways in which we worked through that and helping people, through myriad ways and multiple pathways to recovery, things of that nature. Yours, a big part of it's sound healing. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about what led to your struggle with addiction, and if you also share what your turning point was toward recovery.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris, again, for this opportunity to be here and, kind of share about, the times we first met back in 2014, 2015, and, have an opportunity to work together along with our dear friend and mentor and brother, the late Darren Drum.
Yeah.
And, really, building the space of Toivo, because we believe that no one should be denied the benefits of yoga, meditation, sound healing, qigong, based on socioeconomic standing, psychiatric histories, or experiences with addiction, that these modalities are for everybody. So it was a great opportunity to get to know you more, to explore, to experience your work that you do as well. And it's just an honor to be here with all of you as well to kind of share a little bit about my experience, strength, and hope. My experiences with addiction and incarceration, and hope and recovery that we all share. And for me, after many years of battling with depression and anxiety and drug addiction, I found freedom from alcohol, from marijuana, from cocaine, from heroin, and even prescription opioids like Oxycontin, Vicodins, and Percocets. And, I began that healing journey in a drug treatment program within prison. And, it was in that prison program that, I learned about the transformative powers of yoga, meditation, sound healing, even creative expressive arts like poetry and journaling, And, I had a lot of misconceptions about yoga, about meditation, about sound healing. And to be quite frank, Chris, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. I didn't see Black men practicing yoga, meditation, or sound healing, particularly at that time. So I really didn't think these modalities was for me.
Yeah.
But I know the things I was doing prior to going to prison, it just wasn't working for me no more. So I had to try something new and different. And, I always was in and out of prison in my active addiction. And my last prison bid that I did, I remember being in Hartford Correction, county prison and county jail in Hartford, Connecticut, and still detoxing from the night before, from the heroin, the cocaine, the liquor, all the other drugs, the Klonopin that was in my system. And I was thinking about my daughter, Tatiana, and all the pain that I'm causing in her life, and all the traumas that she experienced, and her father in and out of prison. And at that moment, that point, I was what we say, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that's when the window of opportunity opened to really be open to learn about recovery and sobriety. And my daughter Tatiana, she was my inspiration for me to find that inner motivation to really change my life around for the better, because I wanted to be the man, the father that my daughter could look up to and be proud of. So while in prison, I took advantage of all the programs that was available. And the one program that really helped me the most, I believe, in my early stages of sobriety and recovery was the drug treatment program in prison.
Hmm.
And, it was a 4 month program while incarcerated. And after, I completed that drug treatment program, the counselors hired me to be what they called a peer mentor. So I was helping other men that was incarcerated with me with their addiction because there was a lot of drugs in prison as well too. And I remember making that commitment to myself, making that commitment to my daughter, not to consume any more drugs because I really wanted to make these changes in my life. And it started right where I was at, right here and right now. So I really utilized all the resources, what I've learned while I was incarcerated. And what really helped me the most was that drug treatment program because I learned about, the transformative powers of sound and meditation and yoga and other mind body holistic practices. Also, did some counseling and some therapy as well. And the three keys for me that really helped me to shift my states of consciousness while I was incarcerated was I needed to do some deep self-reflection, which really helped me. I learned about these holistic practices such as sound healing and yoga and meditation, and also was able to begin doing the inner work I needed to do in order to heal and find freedom from alcohol and other drugs. And that was the place for me to really begin that process for me because I never really looked at the vicious cycle that I was in until I was able to be still and go within and connect to that inner resources and really be mindful of my inner landscape and all those habitual patterns that kept me in that very vicious cycle of addiction for many, many years.
Yeah. Wow. So you go through that, experience and
Mhm.
you find your way into these holistic modalities. How is that for the years shifted? What has changed for you in that regard? Are there new things? I'm sure there are, but like what new
Mhm.
things? What different understandings? How has it shifted for you?
Yeah, with sound healing. Once I was released from prison, I really like dove deep into the practice of meditation and really meditating with sound because sound was
Yeah,
a great anchor to keep me in the present moment. Being in prison, it was so hard for me to focus because there was so much external noise going on. So, try to focus on my breath or silence, it just wasn't having it.
right,
So
right.
therefore, sound was that great anchor. So once I was released from prison, I was excited to really learn more about sound healing. So I really dove deep into the practice. Started going to different sound healing sessions, what we call now sound baths,
Mhm.
and it just really became a part of my life and part of my recovery to help me to really move forward in a way that works best for me because it allowed me to be still, to go within, and to really just to notice how I'm feeling, notice the sensations within my body, notice the thoughts that's coming up, notice the habitual thoughts and patterns, that keep me in that cycle of addiction or addictive states or stinking thinking, so they say. So once I was able to dive deep into that practice and learn more about sound healing, and it's been over 10 years since I've been facilitating sound and being a practitioner of sound. And the more I learn, the more I realize that there's so much more to learn, and it's just really beginning to scratch the surface, so to speak. So sound has been really just been like that foundation for me and to explore and understand that sound itself is life itself, and it just humbles me to really and be in awe of all what sound is and the vibrations and how down to the subatomic level, we are
Mm.
vibration, we are sound, we are energy, we are frequency. And, sound is really my practice and my tool to really help me, not only myself, but professionally as well. And I like to couple sound with breath work, something I do personally, but also facilitate practice with other practitioners as well that focus on breath work. And I love bringing those two combinations together, both personally and professionally. And yeah, those modalities really helped me to kind of explore the inner landscape that's within me and able to share with other people
Yeah,
that's in my life.
I love that. Sound. So I remember what you're just saying made me think of I was trying to facilitate meditation to teenagers down at
Mm,
Newport Academy,
yes.
and doing that for several years. But I quickly learned in the beginning, all right, I'm working with 13 and 19-year-olds, and they're not trying to like sit there quietly,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, how am I going to get around this? I had them when they walked in, they saw the tattoos, but I lost them at the now we're going to be quiet.
Right,
So
right.
I started bringing in my guitar and my little pedal board and
Yes.
creating this kind of ethereal soundscape. And the
Yes.
majority of them loved it. So sound, the great equalizer, and
Yes.
turned them on to meditation.
Yes.
Um, Myself included, I used to be a staunch Vipassana guy. Like I'm going to sit and quiet, but now
Hmm.
like I will listen to binaural beats. I will
Yes.
listen sometimes to different frequencies.
Hmm.
But that said too, I've written about having, for lack of better words, very spiritual experiences
Hmm.
at places like a Slayer concert or hip hop events. Like
Yes.
sincerely, like the sound, the collective energy, that experience of unity. Um, I even wrote, I think, in my first book about bhakti, the call and response of bhakti in
Yes.
relation to like hip hop, a lot of like, woo
Yeah.
tang, like it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that? Have you, outside of sound healing, have you had spiritual, like embodied experiences with live music of any genre? Like, where are you on that with that?
Yeah. I'm like you with when it comes to hip hop. Hip hop is
Mhm.
like it's a way of life, you know what I mean? And that really kept me going even when I was in prison as well. Listen to songs from Nas and
Yeah.
Styles P,
Mm.
and just it really kept me going. And that really helped me too, because listening to certain like hip hop music and the experiences that they was going through, it not only brought me down memory lane, but it also put me into a perspective where it opened up my consciousness where I want to be in my life. So it was a form of meditation too when I listened to certain songs myself, and it just helped me to kind of reminisce and bring me to that place of inner peace and calmness. But also there was a station that I used to listen to every Sunday. It was called Echoes. It was a syndicated a radio show, and they played different ambient sounds, different soundscapes, different meditation music, and it really brought me to a different place, and spiritually, emotionally I was somewhere else. Physically I was still in prison, but it just the music, the sounds, the vibration from this station, it just really brought me to a whole new different place, and it just felt a sense of calmness and inner peace while being incarcerated. And I remember the first few practices that I did with yoga while I was incarcerated. Doing this practice in there, and I had my eyes closed and listened to the yoga instructor, and I was doing these practices, and all of a sudden I seen a bright light that came to my awareness. And, there was no windows. I was like, if I looked around to see maybe that was the sun beaming in or whatever the case may be,
Right.
but that wasn't the case, where I was at. And it was just, I just felt a sense of a oneness to all that is. And that was my first true experience with yoga. And I was like, there's something to this, because this feeling I'm feeling, even being in a very hostile and restrictive environment such as prison, I'm finding this sense of inner peace and calmness within me. And I was like, wow, this is a very transformative experience that I'm going through right now. And it's by me just being open to trying something new, such as sound healing, such as meditation, and such as yoga. And it really shifted the way I see myself, the world, and the people in it.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. As you're sharing that, I remember a
Mhm.
conversation I had a while back on
Mhm.
the podcast with Damian Eccles. He was one of the
Mhm.
West Memphis Three.
Mhm.
Very famously known for him and two other individuals being incarcerated for tragic murder of 8-year-old children that they had nothing to do with. And
Mhm.
I remember, he shared with me about learning Zen practice, while he was I think he was 18 years imprisoned, and Damien was in solitary confinement. I could be a little off on this, but I believe 13 of those years in
Mhm.
solitary confinement in this tiny cell, and he would get the shit kicked out of him, literally have
Mhm.
like his teeth kicked in. They didn't take him to a dentist. So he had to sit with that pain. And thank goodness,
Mhm.
he learned about these practices. He
Yeah.
didn't have sound healing, but he did have, some Zen, and it got
Yes.
him through, like
Yes.
these things, even in jail.
Mm.
You're probably familiar with Jarvis J. Masters. Or maybe not, but one of
Yeah.
Padma Children's students, who I
Mhm.
went and visited him on San Quentin's death row, and he
Mm.
wrote a book, That Bird Has My Wings, and he found
Mm.
Buddhism on death row. He's an inmate that was wrongly convicted of shaping or sharpening a spear. This is many, many years ago.
Mhm.
That was used in murdering a prison guard.
Mm.
So he writes about, for example, as he's learning about Buddhism, he couldn't have a mala there, but he created a mala out of Tylenol and some thread from jeans, and he did
Oh,
somehow get
wow.
his hand on a little pin. But
Yes.
it's a wild book, man. If you haven't read it, it's called That Bird Has My Wings,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
yeah, it was surreal to go visit him. It was on Father's Day many years ago, and just being on death row and in that environment. I haven't spoken with him in a very long time, but um, yeah, I hope he's well. Either way,
Yeah.
the
That's
ingenuity,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I met so many creative people, so many talented, intelligent human beings when I was incarcerated,
yeah,
so
yeah.
much brilliance behind bars.
So tell me a little bit now that you're on the other side of that, and I know you
Hmm.
bring sound healing into certain, facilities. What
Yeah.
is that like? What are those experiences like? What are some profound moments you've had that you've witnessed them have? Anything that comes to mind with that?
Yeah, I also work for a psychiatric hospital here in Hartford, Connecticut as well, which, part of my work is to really integrate holistic practices such as sound healing and yoga and meditation and Reiki and nature therapy within the system of care at the
Yeah,
hospital, which has been quite an honor, and to really work with the men and women, non-binary folks that I get an opportunity to work with through
yeah,
these holistic practices. And it's just been a very profound experience to walk in these inpatient facilities and, working with people that's dealing with some really intense emotional distress.
yeah,
And they come to the sound healing sessions, and the experience and the feelings that they received it's just amazing. Where many people, I remember one woman that was listening to the sounds, and she just got out of her chair, and she just went to her knees and just started just like praying,
mm,
because I understand the feeling of almost just that sound connects us to the divine, just a very powerful experience, and it made me think it's like we're more than just our human bodies. There's a spiritual, there's an emotional, there's a mental aspects that makes up the totality of who we are. So it just seeing and witnessing people just really go to a different state of consciousness by listening to the different sounds, to learning to be still and just really listen to the vibrations and frequencies to take them to another state of beingness.
Yeah.
And this the feedback that I get within these settings is just amazing. And also when I walk in, go back into the Department of Correction, into the prisons, and it's just amazing that I could bring, the Himalayan singing bowl, the crystal singing bowls, the gong, the buffalo drum. All
Mm.
these instruments can be considered a weapon to the Department of Corrections, But, I'm able to bring all these instruments and work with the men that I work with. And, it's the vast majority of people never experience sound healing.
Yeah.
The times I went to prison and, when I'm pulling out these different instruments, they like, what is this, And I always have to start off by sharing my own personal story of being incarcerated and being addicted to alcohol and other drugs and going
Yeah.
through my own dark night of the soul and how being in prison, I was able to kind of learn about myself and evolve and grow from that experience. And that kind of breaks the ice, and I'm able to connect with these men that I work with. And when I play the sounds, it brings people to a state of calmness and inner peace, very similar to how I experienced it,
Mm.
and the feedback again I get from these men that's incarcerated. I think back to one of the men saying that I never had a sense of peace
Mhm.
ever in my life. And just by listening to the crystal bowls or the Himalayan singing bowls or the gong or the different other tools that I utilize. And oftentimes in prison, we're in a hyper state of awareness. Hypervigilance is rampant in prison, and it's hard to even let our guards down in any way or even to fall asleep. And there's a few men that always fall asleep during these experiences with sound. So that tells me that they're very, very calm, they're very relaxed for them to even fall asleep during this experience with sound. Then they got to the point of asking, do you have CDs or just whatever the case may be? And it really warms my heart going there to kind of talk about my experiences and share something very new for them and to really allow them to really even find freedom from behind bars.
Yeah.
Very similar to what I did, where I was able to really find that sense of inner peace and inner freedom while incarcerated, and still is an opportunity for them to do the work they need to do so they won't be part of the recidivism statistic that many people get caught up in, being part of the criminal justice revolving door, so to speak,
Yeah.
And I remember when I first went back, just driving up to the prison and seeing the barbed wires and the fence and
Mm.
steel gates, it just brought tears to my eyes, And it wasn't necessarily tears of sadness, just tears of it was just tears,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
being released,
Yeah.
and walking through going through the metal detector and hearing the keys from the correction officers, it really was activating for me in so many ways. Hearing the doors shut, it brought up a very, very intense feelings within my body. It brought me back to very, very intense emotions.
Mm.
Um, I feel that the trauma was within my body, so it was very activating for me. And it took me a few times of going back and forth to prison, to really feel a little bit more at ease. But it was very hard walking through the doors the first few times going to the prisons, But I really enjoyed going there. And I really, really appreciate the fact that I'm able to walk through the front door instead of through the back door with
Mm.
shackles and an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And it just really warms my heart that I'm able to go back to talk to these men and talk to people that's dealing with different types of emotional distress and addictive states, very similar to what I've been through at the
Yeah.
hospital, but also at other treatment centers and facilities throughout Connecticut and beyond.
Yeah. Do you find, when you go in, do you ever experience resistance from any of the people you work with? And if so, how do you work with that when it comes up?
Yeah, it's some people they'll have the blank stares or just not interested in look and everybody with
Right.
the arms crossed and
I know all about it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And like you said, we get it, we understand it. So, um, really meeting people where they're at. If they're not open to this, that's okay.
Yeah.
And but my thing is, long as they're still in the room, they're able to experience the vibrations and sounds. And I think a lot of the work that we do it's a lot of it is about planting seeds, and it's up to the individual to nurture that seed and to
Mm.
water that seed and take care of that seed. But just the words that we share, the tools that we share, the practices that we offer to the people that we work with. It's like planting seeds, and it's up to them to nourish it, to take care of it, but the choice is theirs. And I learned not to take it personal, because I have my own resistance in the beginning stage as well too, and it brings me back to that, and understanding that I have to grow and evolve on my own time. And sometimes it's hard. My ego gets in the way, and my pride gets in the way, and feel um, um, I feel a certain way about them not participating or not seem interested in the practice.
Yeah.
But I just have to check my ego when I feel like that, and just understanding that we're planting seeds, and it's up to them to nourish it.
Yeah, well said. I love planting seeds.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
don't know if you've experienced this, but there have been on multiple occasions where
Mhm.
I'll be giving a talk. I always, not always, but I will occasionally see this one person. I see a lot of people there in the audience
Yeah.
that are intent and nodding heads, and you can tell they're focused. And then there's that one person, and I'm not even talking about a jail setting. I'm talking about like a conference or
Right.
something. But there's that one person, very staunch, and I'm like,
Yes.
oh, this motherfucker hates me. Okay, but I'll
Like
tell
I
you
see
what,
you.
I can't tell you how many times it was that person. They were the first one to come up and thank me
Mm,
or talk to me, and like,
yes.
yeah. So you've experienced that.
Yes, yes,
Isn't
and
that
that's
wild?
in different settings. When seeing somebody talking to somebody, they have this blank stare,
Yeah.
or they seem uninterested, and after the session, they come up to you and say, "Thank you. I really, really appreciate it." And one gentleman, I went to a treatment center today, and one gentleman, he would just, it just seemed uninterested,
Yeah.
and sitting in the chair, it didn't seem like he was interested. His body language says a lot,
Right. Right.
And I was playing the sounds, and he came up to me afterwards, and he gave me a big hug, and he just started crying. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He like, thank you so much. I didn't know how much I needed this. Like, I didn't believe in this shit. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
crying, he like,
Yeah.
just thank you, and it just was a powerful release for him. All that you know stuff, emotions and stress and trauma, the vibrations help to release, and he was just like, thank you. And it's
Yeah.
just so interesting how that works, where we make these we have these perceptions of people and make these misconceptions. At least I do in my head. Is like, okay, he's not receptive to what I'm saying or to the experience with sound, and then it comes to the point where I was off. That wasn't the
Yeah.
case at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Which is just so beautiful.
Yeah. And something I think where we align, you and I, in the way we approach our respective, lines of work in this regard
Hmm.
is we're not pushing an agenda. And I
Right.
think that in and of itself makes what we're offering that much more accessible.
Mm,
Whether we're talking about recovery or about spirituality, whatever it is, it's like,
mm.
hey, here's what I have to offer. Hopefully
Yes,
it resonates. If not, that's okay too.
that's
Like we were
right.
saying, maybe some seeds are planted.
Yes.
Um, I know, at least for me, when people tell me I have to do something or this is the right way, that's the wrong way.
Right.
Oh no. Oh
Right.
no. No. Um, so
That's right.
yeah, I appreciate, that you do that. And I'm sure especially in like prison settings like that, that's
Yeah.
gotta be, more well received than alternatives, or what they're probably often used to.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
very punitive environment, very restrictive environment.
right,
So they used to being told what to do and how to do
yeah,
it and when to do it.
right,
So when we come without no agenda, to kind of sharing from our hearts, our experiences and tools that helped us along the way, and it's up to them to receive it or not.
right,
And we're here, we're present, we're available, and we meet
yeah,
people where they're at.
yeah. So, for anybody listening, but maybe we can use an example if you've had any in
Hmm.
whether it's in prison or any of the other very important places you present at. And to be
Hmm.
clear, you do a lot of work there, but you also do work in other places as well. Like we read the
That's
list, so
right.
it's not
Hmm.
just there. But drawing from any of these, if somebody's kind of skeptical to these alternative healing methods, let's say
Hmm.
they approach you, what do you say to that? What's your response?
Yeah. And especially when it comes to sound or even yoga, meditation, there's a lot of misconception, and I had my own. So, like I said, I get it, I understand, and just meeting people where they're at and kind of sharing, like, yeah, I have my own misconceptions about these practices and how it's marketed here in the United States, and it seems new agey and seeing this and that. But the main thing I like to do is talk about the science of it, and understand that sound's been around for millennia, for a very, very long time, and it's been used in different cultures throughout the world for rites of passage, for rituals, for ceremonies, for healing, for celebration for a very, very, very long time. And when you talk about the metaphysics and the science behind sound, is like, everything vibrates, everything has an energy, has a frequency, has a vibration to it. And when I speak from it, just meeting them where they're at and, understanding what their skepticism about the practice and giving them, some science behind it, if that's what they're looking for, or giving some content to it as well too. So help to kind of like demystify these practices or debunk any misconceptions that anyone may have, because I had them too. I
Sure,
really did,
me
because
too.
of the way I learned about these practices. And oftentimes, many people that I work with, particularly within on the Black and Brown community, many people think that practices like yoga or sound healing um, are almost like against their faith. If they grew up in a very religious upbringing or Christian
Sure,
upbringing, like myself. I grew
yeah,
up in a very religious household. So I viewed practices like this in a very it just was, I was taught to kind of like, it was something against my faith, so it like, don't practice those things, and I had those deep misconceptions about that. So I get it. And it wasn't until I moved past those misconceptions myself and really learn about the practices, embody those practices while I was in prison, that I was able to see and understand and experience the benefits from these modalities. Whereas, okay, I made my own decision, own choice about the transformative powers of sound or yoga or meditation. And, when I think about a lot of the misconceptions that's out there and how it was kind of programmed at a very young age, to me, I believe it was intentional, that a lot of the beliefs that I had about these modalities, how it was taught, um, you know, like disinformation, so to speak, about these practices, because they have so much power within them. And, once just really have the opportunity just to really talk to a person and kind of share what I know, and they can also do their research and send them information, or go to a website and do your own research, learn more about it, then they can make an informed decision whether it resonates with them or not,
exactly.
But it's okay. I believe it's okay to have a level of skepticism about
Yeah.
different practices, so you can be curious about learning more about the practice and getting it from different perspectives, I believe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I truly believe in the art of having healthy skepticism, not
Hmm.
believing things or taking them on blind faith. But,
That's right.
I encourage always people like tune into your own direct experience.
Hmm.
It can be a little tricky. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I was talking to Andrew Harvey once, a great
Mm.
mystic scholar,
Mm-hmm.
and he had said, he talks about the direct path or the pathless path, and he advocates for it, but he also says it can be tricky because there's
Yes.
this back door for the ego to come in, and it's like,
Yes.
is this truly my direct experience, or is there some ego coming in here? And
Yes.
it's yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, I'm all about that. Like tune in, find out what's true for you,
That's
and
right.
but also be open minded, be teachable, like listen to others. So that balance of healthy skepticism and open mindedness.
That's right.
I got a
Yeah.
little jadedness in there too, but that's just my own shit. But
I can dig
so
it.
hey, I'm a human being. If nothing else, I'm honest.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, you are. Yes.
so personal question for you, Calvin.
Hmm.
As I was putting together some things to talk to you about, the
Hmm.
thought came to mind: if you could go back in time, play one healing sound for yourself at the lowest moment, what would that be and why? And it doesn't
Mm.
have to be a bowl; it could be a song, or it could be one of your bowls. What would it be?
Mm. That's so funny. I just did it.
Okay,
It's the
perfect.
hum. It's the
Ah,
hum. Yes,
huh.
and I think one of the most powerful sound healing elements we have is our voice, and
Yeah,
and utilizing our voice, whether through vocal toning or humming, and humming stimulates the vagus nerve, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And for me, it brings me back into my body. I can feel the vibrations. By humming, I'm vibrating the trillions of cells within my body. It keeps me into the present moment, allows me to feel the sensations of the nowness that where I'm in right now. And humming even for 5 minutes for me, it always it brings me back home, back into homeostasis, back into my body. And that's something that I believe that I needed at my lowest point.
yeah,
I learned in my experiences with addiction, you know, it's so important to address the root causes of any health condition, I believe. And for
yeah.
me, at the root of my addiction was the unhealed emotional pain that I experienced in my life, the unprocessed trauma that I endured, that for me went all the way back to childhood, as well as the toxic chronic stress. For me, all of that was at the root of my addiction. So therefore, having practices to really bring me back into my body, help reduce high stress levels, and allow me just to feel, because I believe it's so important for us to feel before we heal. And I think
Mhm.
that would have been a very powerful sound, a tool that I could have utilized in my life, particularly in my lowest moment, back um, in the days. And even, for me, it is all about the ebb and flows. I still have my challenging days in life, and
Sure,
today
yeah, yeah.
I have the awareness of having tools that I can utilize, such as my Himalayan singing bowl, such as my voice and humming, such as being out in nature. I think nature is one of the most
Mm.
underutilized antidepressants out there. I think
Yes.
so many practices that I have now, because I went through my dark night of the soul. I went through those challenging times in my life where I can reflect now. And when I'm going through those ebbs and flows of life, I have resources that I can conjure up and utilize in my life to really ride the wave, so to speak, throughout this journey that we call life.
I love that. There's a song I'm gonna have to send you when we're off this later.
Uh-huh.
You made me think when we were just saying the hum. It's not hum,
Yes.
but it's Om. And I was
Yes.
looking up real quick, but MF Doom and Bishop Nehru. MF Doom, my favorite
Yeah.
rapper of all time. But
Rest
yeah,
in peace. Yes.
yeah, rest in peace. There's this great like under the radar album Neruvian Doom, and there's a
Hmm.
song Om, and they talk about it and they chant Om, and I'm like, okay, MF Doom and Om, my
Oh my
worlds are
goodness.
colliding. Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta peep it out.
yeah.
Yes.
I'll send it to
Yes.
you when we're done.
Yes.
But I loved your answer. Like, yes, the natural, like here it is.
Yeah.
Om,
Yeah.
Om, whatever it is. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I learned from Jonathan Goldman, which is a pioneer in sound healing, that um, Om and hum, it goes together. It goes together, like Om. So like the vibration from the hum and the vocal toning of the om, and it goes hand in hand, which is a very big part of the vocal toning. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love to hear that song
Oh
and
yeah.
just it's
I'm sure they'll
yeah.
appreciate it. Um, so okay, here's one. We are living, let me be nice about this, in
hmm
very polarized times. We'll leave it at
Yes.
that. If we could hear one healing sound collectively right now, what do you think that should or could or would sound like in your opinion?
I would have to say the gong.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
And
gong.
why is that?
The deep resonant sound of the gong. The gong is so powerful, so ancient, and it connects us. I do when I play the gong for myself or with someone playing the gong for me, and I'm a participant. The gong just really brings me back to the sense of oneness, and we get caught up in the roles that we play, the mask that we wear, the polarizing aspects of the situations that we experience in our life, and a lot of it is intentional. A
Yeah,
lot of the things that they want to keep us divide and conquer, so to speak. One of the oldest tactics in the book, but the
yeah,
gong it just reminds us of our oneness. Of who we are, and that we all
mm,
energetically interconnected.
yeah,
And the vibrations and sounds and frequencies from the gong, it really brings us back to that just that state of beingness. And when I first like went to the conduit center and first experienced a big gong right in front of me, oh my goodness, I felt just a sense of oneness, and the only words that can describe how I felt is unconditional agape love,
yeah,
and I believe that love is more than just a human emotion. I believe that love is a vibration, it's a frequency, and
yeah,
it's a natural state of being. But oftentimes our traumas, our political divisiveness, the all the things that we go through, our addictions and the poor choices we make, and all these polarizing energies that's kind of making us feel so disconnected to the inner love that dwells inside of us, that
mm,
connect us to humanity. And the gong can really just helps us to really bring us back to the essence of who we truly are, and to bring us back to that natural state of being. And I think once people just be still, go within, and listen to a nice gong for like a 30 minutes or 45
yeah,
minutes or so,
yeah.
we'll feel the interconnectedness to all that is.
I love
Yeah.
that. Making me think of our mutual friend Kelly Joy,
Oh
and
yes, yes,
she's all about that gong. And I there's this really great picture she has of when she lugged that thing to see Amma, the hugging
yes,
saint, and Amma's, I don't know if she's hitting it or blessing it or something. It's yeah, I love that. I love we have such wonderful people.
yes.
Connecticut's really bred some truly special healers.
So
And
true.
yeah, it's
Yes.
really cool, man.
Shout out to Kelly Joy because she's the one that
Yeah.
connected us together,
She is.
10 years
Yeah.
ago. So shout out to
Yeah.
Kelly Joy. She's
Yeah.
in India right now with Alma,
She
so
is.
she's
I
there.
know.
And yeah, shout out to her and just all the amazing people that we know here in Connecticut and
Yeah.
beyond. But yeah, shout out to Kelly Joy because she made the connection for us to be
Yeah.
doing what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. And it's funny with her too, we're talking about hip hop, but her and I came up in the Connecticut hardcore scene, and
Mm,
here we are all these years later. I know she still loves hardcore. I certainly do too, but
yeah.
We love our spirituality as well.
Yes,
There's room
absolutely.
room for all
Yes,
of it.
that's
Again,
right.
I've talked about this, I think maybe in my first book, but like my first spiritual experiences, unbeknownst to me, were those like punk rock
Mm,
hardcore records. And I didn't really realize it until later on when I found Krishna Das and Bhakti
mm,
music, and two different, ends of the spectrum musically. However, I had this same like visceral experience, hearing KD for the first time as I did hearing like a Snapcase record or, whatever it was. It just cut right to the core of me, and it was like I felt this like deep connection to something greater than myself.
wow.
um Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And then if I'm going back even further, maybe Michael Jackson when I was a kid,
Yeah,
um my first love was Michael Jackson. But
yeah,
but really like having, the context to really even start to begin to process, holy shit, what is going on here,
yeah.
was punk hardcore.
Uh,
So yeah, that and again, making it approachable to people from all walks of life. Like,
that's right.
just like addiction doesn't discriminate, recovery does not, nor does spirituality or,
That's right.
you know, uh, whatever one cares to call it. I know some people even now have an issue with that word, and I get it. Like, there's
Hmm.
stigmas attached to everything, but
Everything. Yeah,
that,
yeah,
that unity, whatever words work for you. But
yeah. And that's the key right there. What works for us, you know,
yeah,
and and
yeah,
and utilizing it in a way that truly works best.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to come, partake in one of your sound healings not that long ago, and it's been a
Yes.
while. Um, and I'll tell you, first of all, you were incredible when I first knew you, but like the second time, I was like, who is this guy? Like, what's going on here? Plus, what are all these like wild extra things now he's using? And it was crazy, man, and wonderful. Like you and your beloved partner, and you guys
Yes.
did this wonderful session that I
Thank you,
desperately
brother.
needed. Didn't know how
Thank
much I
you.
needed it.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank
so
you.
yeah, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, these different instruments outside of just the healing bowls? Like, are what do you choose to work with? Like, do you feel called to them, or are they things that work well for people? And what are some of the more unconventional instruments you've seen used in sound healing?
Yeah, yeah. Usually during my sound healing session, I use the traditional instruments such as the Himalayan singing bowl, and
Mhm.
I have one right here. The sounds
Nice.
from the Himalayan singing bowl, or my crystal singing bowl, or the gong, or the ocean drum, or the buffalo drum,
Mm,
the kosher chimes, or the different other healing tools to really help us to activate and stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the relaxation response, to help us to calm our minds, to relax our bodies, to feel those emotions, and to nourish our soul. And the
mm,
meditative sounds produced from all the instruments that I utilize, it promotes healing from chronic stress, muscle tension, physical pain that we feel in our bodies, feelings of anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, sleep issues, and different other stress-related chronic health conditions that we experience in our lives. And all those different types of emotional distresses that I just shared was the main reason why I reached for alcohol and marijuana and cocaine and heroin and prescription opioids for many years. And even though those substances gave me a temporary sense of relief, it truly, truly, really did. But for me and many people like myself, it caused more negative consequences at the end. So sound is so powerful because it helps us to move energy, and emotions, and I've come to learn that emotions, that energy that needs to move, but oftentimes it becomes stuck, it becomes stagnant within our bodies. We have a dear friend, Nikki Myers. She's the
yeah,
founder of Yoga and 12-Step Recovery.
yeah,
She's the one that often says that our issues live in our tissues.
yeah,
And I find that to be so, so true. The trauma that we experience in our lives, those emotions that we suppress or repress, it's in our bodies, it's in our muscles, it's in our tissues. Our cells have memory, and our body keeps score of all of our experiences we go through on this journey that we call life. And the sounds, the vibrations, and tones and frequencies from the Himalayan singing bowl, the gong, the crystal bowls, it penetrates to the cellular level. It helps to release some of that stuck energy or stagnant emotions or stress or trauma that gets trapped in our bodies. And, oftentimes it's released in a form of tears, which is a
mm,
very beautiful thing,
yeah,
particularly living in a society and a culture that kind of conditions us to suppress our emotions, to suppress our tears. When able to release in a form of tears is a very therapeutic and healing process for us to have. And just like the experience I had with the gentleman today, when he came and he has his own skepticism about sound healing, but at the end he just came, just released all these tears because all the trauma and the stuck energy and emotions and feelings that he suppressed for so many years under the influence of alcohol and other drugs, it was able to be released in
yeah,
that. And the instruments that I use, The Himalayan singing bowls is very powerful for grounding. The crystal bowls is very good for activating. But all tools that I use, different sound healing instruments, um, it's almost like a prescription, like a medication prescription, where some people may be dealing with anxiety and they take they take a prescription for that, and everybody has anxiety. Some people may have um, a very positive experience with that anxiety medication. Some people may have an adverse effect from that anxiety medication. So different sounds impact people differently, and usually in my one-on-one sessions, I can really kind of pinpoint what sounds work for individuals. But when we're doing a group session, what they call sound baths, I play different sounds and frequencies and vibrations. And, usually at the end of the session, people can share how each instrument made them feel. Some sounds made them feel grounded. Some sounds may evoke a lot of energy and emotions and feelings that come up for them, which I personally believe is it's a good thing. You got to feel before you heal. But at the same time, it could be intense for people going through that process. So part of the work that I do as a practitioner of the healing arts is really hold that space for any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to share, anything that need to be witnessed as they process those raw human emotions that may come up while listening to different sounds and vibrations and tones from the different instruments that I utilize. But I think the most interesting instrument that I utilize is called the wah-wah tube,
Mhm.
and it's like a long steel tube. Has a hole in the middle where I place my thumb on it, and it makes this wah 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 sound, which is
Mhm.
pretty cool. And a dear friend George, he went to Peru. He did some work with one of the elders down in Peru, and he gifted that back to me a couple of years ago, and it's been a cool. I use traditional instruments, but that's one of the coolest ones that I work with. That's I feel is non-traditional, but have a very powerful, profound effect when I play it. So that's a really
Yeah.
cool instrument to play.
I remember, yeah, that it was
Yeah,
wild. Yeah.
yeah.
What is going on now? Okay, this is happening. Great. Yeah, it
Word.
was wild. It was wild. I loved it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, something you said too in there that I remind people of in the work I do is
Mhm,
you're talking about, Nikki Myers, of course, and you
mhm.
mentioned issues in the tissues and the body
Yeah,
keeps the score.
yeah.
Bessel van der Kolk's great book.
Mhm.
Something Gabor Mate said once that really resonated with me is he said, the question isn't why the addiction, why
Yes.
the pain?
By the pain, yes.
Yeah, and we are, I'll use I statements, but
Mhm,
I churned to that bottle or those pills or whatever it was. It could be empty sex, it could be overspending, it
mhm.
could be food consumption, because there were things in here in the heart and the mind,
Yes,
and the tissues that
yes.
weren't healed. So those were just, they weren't the real issue.
Right.
The drugs and alcohol particularly got me into some very precarious situations, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. However, why was I going to that bottle? What was really going
Right.
on? And it wasn't until I started doing a truly, truly deep dive into that, that my healing journey started to take a significant shape and form for me. So
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
that's one of the goals is really, yes, and understanding why the pain, what's the substances is trying to alleviate,
yeah,
it's our best attempt to try to numb the pain or escape those feelings and sensations or fill the void, so to speak, with these behaviors or substances, but
yeah,
we take a look at the root, causes, which is why the pain. And that's the questions that part of the work that we do is kind of have shift these conversations within these clinical settings, whereas, we don't have to pathologize every human experience that we go through, because I personally believe, and this is my own personal belief, that addiction is a human experience,
yeah,
not a human identity, because
yeah,
behind the so-called addict, behind the so-called alcoholic, I believe is a human being that experienced a significant amount of trauma, emotional distress, and
yeah,
toxic chronic stress, and just looking for a sense of relief from that stress, and
yeah,
when we start looking at these experiences is like why the pain. I think that could really revolutionize the behavioral health settings and behavioral health systems that we work with within our culture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I tell people I work with, especially in regards to these addictive things,
Hmm.
um, couldn't be a better time to be getting into the recovery game. With all
Yeah,
of these multiple pathways to recovery,
yeah,
I think back to shit over 20 years ago when I went into my first detoxing program. It was don't pick up, go to a meeting, get a sponsor, go. And look, that works for some people. I will
right.
never, ever knock the 12 steps because they have saved my life. I have learned
Yeah,
some very valuable things there, but there is no denying that for some individuals, they can't find it there. And that's
yeah,
okay. So that's why I love multiple pathways to recovery. There's so many options out there in this day and age that, 20 years ago, at least where I was, that
yeah,
they weren't there, you
yeah,
know? So,
yeah. You're so true. It's
yeah,
so true. There's so many different pathways, and I'm with you as well. It's like 12 step is the foundation of my early sobriety and recovery, and I never knock it.
yeah,
But I do want to mention that for me, I got to the point where I almost felt like I was plateaued, so to
yeah,
speak,
yeah.
and I was looking for more. Like our friend Tommy Rosen, I
Tommy
felt like
Rosa, yeah.
a recovery 2.0 I
Yep.
needed. You know what I mean? So therefore, and that's when I started really diving deep into the holistic practices that really helped me to bring me to that 2.0 stages of my recovery, and started looking at things from a different perspectives, and utilizing these tools to really transform my life and make it a lifestyle. But that the foundation of my sobriety and my recovery are the 12 steps, and I'll never knock it. But
Yeah.
I just had to evolve, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. And thank goodness for people like Tommy who
yeah,
recognized the need for that. And, same, I'm sure he's not going to knock the steps either.
right,
And it's a
right.
program that still works for so many
So many
people.
people. That's right.
And that's beautiful. But also, like, this is a whole nother conversation, but, we have medically assisted treatment and harm
Hmm.
reduction, and those can be very touchy subjects in those rooms, psychedelic assisted therapies, things like
Yeah,
that. So, different strokes for
for
different
different
folks.
folk.
So
Yeah,
if you're listening to this though, and you have your own struggles with substances, please know that there are many different means and methods to get well and to heal. And if AA is the only thing or NA is the only thing you've heard of, please know there's other smart
so
recovery,
much.
Dharma
Yeah.
recovery, refuge. There's therapy, there's hiking, there is just so
Yes.
much stuff there.
Yes. So true.
Yeah. So Kelvin, we're pretty much up on time.
Mhm.
I want to give you the floor though. Is there anything that and we could go on and on
Right.
for hours, but is there
Yes.
anything that we didn't get to that you would like to leave our listeners with and talk about before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we pretty much touched on the main gist of everything. And it's like, you said, there's just so many different pathways to recovery, to healing, and really connecting to a resource, a modality, a practice that really resonates with you. And know that I believe we're wired for connection, we're wired for community, and it's so important that we find, if anyone that's dealing with any experiences with addiction and looking to find freedom and recovery and sobriety, I encourage people to really find your tribe, find your community, find sober people that you can connect with. One of the things I learned is that people get sober in treatment centers and facilities, but I believe people stay sober, sustain their sobriety in community with other sober people and people that's in recovery. So I encourage people to find your peoples, find your group, your connect with loved ones that have your best interests at heart, that want to help you move forward in your healing journey of recovery. And, and really find practices, modalities to help you to take care of yourself, whatever that may mean or look like for you. I truly do believe that self-care is a form of self-love. And when we do the things to honor and nurture ourselves in a holistic way, meaning mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically, is a true act of self-love. Because when we take this time out to relieve stress, to find that inner peace and balance, we can rationally respond to situations instead of emotionally reacting to them. And I know when I emotionally react to things, I say things and I do things that, I later regret. But when we're less stressed and more relaxed, we think clearly, make better decisions and choices that resonate with our greater good. Are we able to strengthen our immune systems, decrease our heart rate and our blood pressure? We gain more mental clarity and insight. We're also able to tap into the love, the peace, the happiness, the joy that dwells inside of each and every one of our hearts. All we need to do is take this time out, like we do in our lives, whether it's sound healing, whether it's yoga or 12-step meetings, recovery people, recovery coaches, whatever it is, just really incorporate it into your life and make it part of your lifestyle. And I just encourage people to know that you don't have to do this alone. You really don't.
I love that, Kelvin. I mean, I'm
Thank you,
sold.
brother.
Sign me up.
Thank you.
I'm ready. Yeah, man. So
Yes,
thank
man.
you. That's so beautifully said.
Thank you.
Where can people find you online, or if they want to connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can check out me and my beautiful life partner, Maria Del Carmen, at soulcareloveLLC.com. You can learn more about our upcoming individual and group sessions we have here in Connecticut and beyond in New England. We also do virtual sessions as well, too. And we also have an audio course called Sound Healing Essentials for Sobriety, which is a great, powerful audio course for people that's in or seeking sobriety or recovery. So you can learn more about sound healing, how you can implement it into your lifestyle to help you on your sobriety journey. We also have our own brand of cacao, which is considered a
Nice.
superfood. And for me, it's an alternative to coffee. In my early stages of recovery, especially when going to the 12-step meetings, I
Mhm.
had to drink a lot of coffee. And, the way I drink coffee, the caffeine, it gave me the artificial energy, but it gave me that crash and the jitters, which, it felt like those times of my active addiction. So I connected with a chocolatier. Shout out to Aruna Chocolates, and I wanted to come up with a blend that for people that's in or seeking recovery can consume. Cacao is rich in antioxidants, rich in magnesiums, the nutrients that our body needs to thrive. And the blend that I have has ashwagandha, reishi mushrooms, mug fruits, just all the yummy ingredients that our body needs to thrive. You also could check that out on our website as well. And I also have you could download a sound bath as well too, a 30-minute sound bath that absolutely no charge. So you can listen to it on your device and help you to bring you to a place of calmness, relaxation, and inner peace in the comfort of your own home. So feel free to check us out on our website.
Kelvin, you are killing it. Jesus, who is this guy? Like, don't forget the little people, okay? Please.
And I
Oh
got to give
man.
a shout out to you, Chris, man, because I remember when, I kind of was, when I first met you, you was already doing your thing, writing your books, and I read a couple of your books in my early stages back in 2000. Your first book came out in 2000, was it 15?
14.
14,
Yeah.
2000, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Because I remember, yeah, we had one of your book signings at Toivo at that
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and your books really helped me. And I was on my early stages of my recovery, and just your support, your friendship, it really does mean a lot to me, man. And, and here we are 10 years, 11 years later, and we still connected and we still learning and growing from one another. And I
Yeah.
just appreciate you. Love you, man. And thank
Oh
you so much
man.
for the work that you do, man, in the communities and how the influence that you had in my life personally. So I appreciate you, brother.
Well, I'm humbled by those words because that feeling couldn't be more than mutual. And
Thank
when I
you.
came back from California last year, you're one of the first people I saw. So
Yes,
picked
yes,
up, right where we left off. And
absolutely, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
man, I'm
yeah.
so blessed to have people like you in my life.
Thank you, brother.
And yeah, and just before we close, again, our friend Darren and
Yes,
just coming together in that spirit. And
that's right.
yeah, man, we just show up each day and keep carrying on this work to the best of our capacity,
Yes,
and
sir. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
True indeed. True
I
indeed.
love you, my friend,
Love you
and
too, brother.
I
Yes.
will see you sooner than later.
Yes.
All
Please.
right, bro.
Yes. All right. Goodbye, everyone.